Happy Sunday to you. Today we are going to talk about that favorite topic, taxes. Whenever we are talking about government at any level, we need to talk about how we generate revenue for the infrastructure. Yeah, that word that means pipes and pavement and buildings and things like that. Infrastructure and services, people doing the things that need to be done or giving us programs that we love. Okay, so that's infrastructure, that's services. How do these things get paid for? Largely with property taxes raised by the municipality, levied on property tax owners. Now, there are actually, though, a few different sources for revenue. And today I just want to make the point that we always need to be growing. This is one of the things I talked about when, I chose Build Up St. Stephen as kind of a main theme of the campaign, you could call it, or the kind of mayor that I want to be, in that we are always focused on building up. First of all, there's that positive angle. I always want to be building up the staff, building up other councillors, building up residents. I do not want to be a mayor or a candidate of division. There is plenty of that going around, and I just want to put that to rest. I will never, ever be anything but positive, even in the face of challenges. So there's that build-up angle, but also we always need to be building up our tax base so that we do not need to raise the tax rate. If this is your first video hearing this, then you're like, okay, tell me what that means. This is video number 91, though, and if you haven't been following for the last 91 days, you will have heard me say that many times. We need to be building up St. Stephen in terms of more people coming here, sharing the tax load. And tax is often, used as a pejorative word. We don't love paying taxes. How few taxes do we need to pay? We always need to keep those as low as possible because that is a real cost. I pay about $250 a month in my property tax, plus the water bill. It's very important for you to know that if you're in the urban area, in the urban ward of St. Stephen, you will be paying for the water system, whereas in the rural ward, they do not pay that. It's actually against the law to have anyone but the water users pay for the water system. But about a third of the revenue that comes into the budget of the municipal district of St. Stephen is not property taxes, and that is kind of what I want to focus on today, give you an idea of the slice of the pie using the 2026 budget that the current council had set for the 2026 year, and I find it quite informative. So this is going to get a bit wonky, policy wonk in that sense, a bit nerdy. But if you're interested at all in the housekeeping of the municipality, the bank account, so to speak, it's good for you to know what we're paying for out of what total pie, you could say, and how the slices are made up. And that's, with that understanding, then we can keep front and center. How do we keep these things low? How do we make sure we're not always just buying more and more, paying more and more, purchasing things that sound good, whether that's infrastructure or service, and then realizing we can't pay for them? Yesterday, I talked about the very sobering fact that every single year we are facing an infrastructure deficit of about $750,000, and that is why we need to always have a surplus at the end of the year to be putting money into a capital fund as we try to replace things that are breaking down, wearing out, that kind of thing. Watch yesterday's video if you want to talk about that. So today, I ended yesterday by saying that's why we need taxes. Of course we need taxes. This is the way of collectively putting our money together to pay for these things. If we didn't do that, for example, we would have to, like every street, if you own a property, you'd have to get together with your property, the other people on your street and say, what if we pay a company, a guy or some lady or some guy to come and pave our roads, and then we'll give them the money, and then, you'd have to be doing that. Instead, we pay the municipality the tax to take care of the garbage and take care of the water delivery and that's just taxes, right? And so we always want to be keeping those as low as possible, though, to get as much value out of for our money which that's what the collective typically purchases anyway. That is the rationale around it. But that means really smart tendering, making sure companies, you want to pay, you want to purchase kind of the lowest offer, but not the lowest amount of quality. So municipalities are always balancing those two things together. But the total budget, here it comes, is about, so the whole total pie is about $14.9 million for 2026. That is the budget. And then when you look at the budget document, which I will put in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions here, if you want to look at the budget for 2026, the year we're currently in, you'll see that $14.9 million of projected revenue, what the municipality will bring in, will then get spent. It is New Brunswick law that the municipality spends as much as it makes, and it is zero. Now that doesn't mean it needs to buy as much as it brings in. Precisely the point I made yesterday, there needs to be a surplus every single year in any healthy municipality because of things that are breaking. Think about if you're a homeowner, you know that one day you're going to have to replace the roof. Thankfully, you don't have to replace something that big every single year. But if you have a driveway, you know it's going to crack and wear out. If you have a roof, you know it's going to break. These are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 upgrades that you are going to need to make in the span of the time you own your house. And if you're smart, you're going to be putting money away for that. You're not just going to realize one day, oh my gosh, the roof is worn out. Well, a municipality is much larger and has, as I said yesterday, $55 million in total spent infrastructure over our time, and we need to always be replacing that. So this year, $14.9 million, I've got numbers here, $9.4 million of that, or 63% of that pie, will be paid for by property taxes. So that's that's taxes on business owners, that's taxes on single dwelling houses like I live in, that's taxes on properties like for apartments where people own apartments and collect taxes from land, people who live in the units, that kind of thing. So 63% or of $9.4 million will be collected in property tax. Then there's grants, okay? And that's the second largest slice of the revenue pie. That's about $2.16 million, or 14.5% of the pie is other levels of government, whether that's provincial or federal, sending money to help us operate things, sending money to help us replace infrastructure. That is something we always need to be advocating for as a municipality. I'll talk a bit more about that on the other end after I break these numbers down. Then the third largest slice of the pie, 11% or so, is transfers. Now, transfers are kind of within in-house money moving around. That can happen, for example, with that surplus I was talking about. St. Stephen has a $600,000 plus surplus. Sounds like a lot, but then of course you think about how we just needed to borrow $5 million-ish to pave the roads. When you're talking about replacing our water system, that is upwards of tens of millions of dollars, it was said at the meeting recently by Dillon Consulting. So, that's what we need, a surplus every year, transferring that over into that capital fund to replace things that are wearing out. And so it can be things, also transfers include things like that the water bill. So I pay $190 a month now, and some of the meters are based on use, some are a flat rate, but that will go into the municipality and then they will transfer. That's why it's called transfers, and that goes to the total revenue. Then other revenue is about $700,000. What is that? That's like small everyday revenue sources, things like building permits. Whenever you want to build something or renovate, you need to go in and get a building permit. That makes up about $85,000. RCMP are leasing the building. That's about $157,000. There's other rentals that can happen throughout the community of municipal-owned properties or buildings. There's bank interest from putting a surplus in. You make interest on that. So that's an example of all those little streams that add up to a grand total of about $700,000 a year, adding to our budget. Then there's services, and this is what people pay fees for municipal facilities or programs. You think of the arena rentals, you think about the pools, the gym memberships, the canteen sale, anything like that, anything that the municipality charges fees or sells, that is included in there. Community programs and things like that. Hall rentals, again, $57,000 or $570,000 million. $570,000 for that. And then there's services to other governments that we share. So when we do something like, provide fire protection or maybe highway cost sharing, something is done and another municipality reimburses us for that. That's a little bit of transferring that goes on, $380,000 for that. So again, that grand total, $14.9 million, that is how the pie is divvied up. We want to keep taxes as low as possible. One thing that we are a part of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, which is a collective of, there's 77 municipalities in New Brunswick and well over 60 are part of the UMNB, it's called. And one of the things that they are advocating for is something like, definitely more transfers from the province to help with that infrastructure gap that I was talking about yesterday. It's estimated that we are in a $200 million deficit in terms of things that need to be replaced in municipalities versus the money that's actually on hand. So you're seeing lots of crumbling throughout New Brunswick. That is based on growth in the past, building things, buying things, and then in the future, the growth wasn't there to pay for it. Again, we always need to keep that front and center when we are thinking about governing, when we are thinking about making budgetary choices. And that is why the UMNB would like to see, as a collective, they're lobbying the province. Hopefully we can see some success on this. For an HST return. So, for example, within the municipal boundaries, the way this would work is all of the HST that the province collects would not then just stay in the provincial hands and in the federal hands, and then they kind of decide how much they give us back. What the HST, this reform would mean, is that all the HST that's collected inside the municipal district of St. Stephen, a portion of that specifically, or all of that, would be returned, likely not all, because then they'd have to do it to every municipality and it would be a net zero. Although, hey, that's a great thing to hope for, perhaps. But it is a pretty high income stream for the province. But a portion of that HST, say, would come right back to the municipal district of St. Stephen, and then that's based on economic activity happening here, and we can use that to build things out and programs and infrastructure in our own municipality. Because right now, the province provides your top property assessment, and then we just charge, the municipality just charges a tax rate, an urban rate and a rural rate based on the value of your property. Well, of course, if your income didn't change and your property goes up, again, you didn't do anything to warrant this change. What if you did not renovate your property at all? You haven't done anything at all to your property because you're on a fixed income, but then the value goes up because of activity around you. Well, that would be fine if that was just kind of equity in the property, but no, you're actually taxed on the value of your property going up, even though you didn't do anything at all. So this is not a very good way to tax folks, especially if you had a bad year, got laid off, you're on a fixed income. For me, like this, the value of my property doesn't mean very much because I don't ever plan on moving. I'm not going to sell this. My wife and I say we are going to die in this house. So whether, we bought this place for $150,000 in 2018, if it goes up to $500,000 over, by next year in value, and I get taxed on that, well, I didn't do anything for that, Sure, I've done some renos here and there, but that's an example of my tax bill going up, even though I didn't do anything. So UMNB is kind of asking for, every year they're assessing the transfer back from the province, providing creative ways that maybe municipalities can get more help from the province. And another thing that you need to know about is New Brunswick is unique in that other provinces allow their municipalities to set tax rates based on zoning. So right now, you're familiar with how the rural zone pays 56 cents per $100 of property assessment, and the urban zone pays $1.56. And that's really it. That's the only kind of rates that the municipalities can set in New Brunswick, whereas other provinces, even Nova Scotia, you can have an area that is zoned a specific way, say for low income or senior housing, affordable housing, and then you can set different tax rates based on that zoning. I don't want to get too into the weeds here on that because your eyes will glaze over, but in New Brunswick, you just can't do that. And that's another way we'd like to see municipalities offer tax breaks to folks, maybe even raise the taxes on maybe certain commercial properties or incentivize, keep taxes low on certain zones to see more activity there. But in New Brunswick, that's just not possible. So these are the challenges that face us as a municipality, but it's important to know that I want you to know, if I'm your mayor, here's what our budget is, here's what you're paying for, here's what's going up, here's what's going down, as we make the really challenging choices that face every municipality of how to spend money and how to make sure you are not taxed off of your property and how to make sure other levels of government are giving us the help we need as well. All right, that is it, friends. Taxes, fun stuff. Tomorrow we'll continue on with our 15 priorities. It'll be Monday, so I'll see you then. buildupststephen.ca. That is my website for more priorities and commitments. Check that out. Take care of yourself today and your neighbor, and let's keep building up St. Stephen strong together. Cheers.